Hello and welcome to another another YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about World War One and it's the interwar period. To begin, I'm going to talk about roles of the Paris Peace Conference in reestablish order in Europe. The Paris Peace Conference from 1919 to 1920, aimed to formally end World War One and prevent future conflicts. Its most well-known outcomes: the Treaty of Versailles, redrew borders, dismantled empires like Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. It established new nations like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. The League of Nations was created to provide a forum for international diplomacy, and conflict resolution. However, the conference struggled to create lasting stability because it prioritized the interests of the victors, particularly Britain and France, over long-term peace, especially in how it treated Germany. Mainly Europe, with the Treaty of Versailles and how it affects Germany. It started with new nations like Poland, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Czechoslovakia, and Austria and Hungary emerged from the ashes of fallen empires. Border shifts. Germany lost 15% of its land and about 10% of its population, including Alsace-Lorraine to France, and lands in the east towards Poland. Colonial loss. Germany's overseas colonies were handed over to the League of Nations as mandates towards them. Military limits. Germany army was reduced, conscription ended, and weapons production was restricted. Reparations and humiliation. Germany was forced to pay massive reparations and accept sole responsibility for the war, leading towards political and economic instability and national resentment, conditions that helped fuel the rise of Nazism. Long-range impacts of World War was and the cause of the Great Depression. Things like impacts. Well, let's begin with impacts of World War One. The destruction of infrastructure and farmland, especially in France and Britain, were big. Massive national debts. As I said, Germany took the blame for the war. Massive debts particularly in Britain and France were pretty big as well. Economic hardship in Germany due to reparations and loss of industrial regions. Inflation and later hyperinflation in Germany in the early 1920s. Shift in global economic power towards the United States was huge as well. Now, for reasons for the Great Depression were things like overproduction and failing to reach demand in agriculture and industry, along with the stock market crash in 1929, and bank failures and collapses of credit systems were really big. The U.S. economic woes caused a global domino effect, especially in economics. It tied into America's loans and trade. The Soviet Union under Stalin and differences from Lenin and changes for civilians were things like from Lenin to Stalin, where Lenin promoted a mix of socialism and with limited capitalism, which was NEP. Stalin ended NEP and he introduced 5-year plans for rapid industrialization and collectivization of agriculture. Under Stalin, industrialization was pretty big. Rapid and brutal infrastructure and production increased, but working conditions were severe. Collectivization forced consolidation of farms led to famine, and notably the Holodomor in Ukraine. And political repression, mass arrests, purges, and gulag signs dissent. Propaganda and cult of personality. Stalin became a near-defined figure in state messaging. Civilians felt that some admired Stalin modernization efforts, although some lived in fear due to widespread surveillance, show trials, and executions. Life under Stalin was often marked by hardship, fear, and a lack of freedom. When we're thinking of what the extent of the government should reach towards citizens during an economic crisis, you can think of many things like public work jobs, social welfare safety nets, along with regulations of markets and banks are major, along with long-term investments in education and infrastructure. Government should actively support citizens during times of economic crisis to prevent social collapse and long-term harm. The Great Depression showed that a laissez-faire approach can deepen suffering. Programs like the New Deal in the U.S. and in the U.S. provided jobs, stabilizing banks, and restoring confidence. In contrast, the lack of intention in welfare, Germany worsened conditions and led to extremism, and their support didn't reach towards those public work jobs, or social welfare safety nets, or any long-term investments in education infrastructure. New forms of culture in the 20s and 30s were great of political concern, but also a reflection of political realities was movies. They were great escapisms for the Great Depression, and it spread national narratives around the entire world, like the American dream. The radio became a massive tool for political messaging and propaganda, used by leaders like FDR for the fireside chats, Hitler for nationalist messaging. It helped build national identity and shared cultural experiences. It delivered news quickly, influencing public opinion during events like the economic collapse and the rise of fascism. Both medias connected people to their governments, whether through hope, fear, or shared cultural pride, and reflected social anxieties and desires for change during this period. That is all. Thank you.